Hey, welcome to the Elevating IT podcast. I'm your host, Mike Brooks, with my co-host, Frank D. Benedetto from Audit and Two River Technology Group, an MSP in New Jersey. And we're joined today by some guests. We've got two guests. This is like our first two guests, so I'm excited about it. From Barracuda, we have Sinan Eren, who is, hang on, I'm going through the LinkedIn here. I'm terrible at this. VP of Zero Trust Access. I'm going to ask you about what that means. And Brian Babineau, who is the Senior VP and GM of Barracuda MSP. So guys, can you give a little bit of an introduction on yourselves? Tell us what you do, what a little bit about yourselves.
Yeah, sure. I'll start. I'm a 20 plus year of veteran of cybersecurity. I've been on all sides of on the equation, like defense, offense, on the vendor side, ISV side. As VP of Zero Trust, I am in charge of basically putting our customers on a journey to transition from the old kind of IP-based networks to the future, basically, of decentralized and distributed workforce accessing resources and company assets and SaaS applications in a secure way, right? No trust until verified. Essentially, that sums up my task at hand. Cool.
And Brian?
Thanks for having me. So I am based out here just outside of Boston, Massachusetts, accountable for Barracuda's managed service provider division. So we are a dedicated group as part of Barracuda that wake up every day and build augment product for and sell to and make successful our managed service provider partners. So a global division, and one of the offerings that we get to bring to market that we're excited about, and relatively new to the Barracuda portfolio, is Sinan's Zero Trust Network Access solution.
Cool. Well, thanks for being on here, guys. Interested to learn more about you guys and more about Barracuda. And Frank, me and Frank usually do a little banter, a little small talk, a little fun talk in the beginning. But we're gonna. I think we'll skip through that. I think my mother's already jumped off anyway. My mother watches every week just to listen to me and Frank go back and forth, and then she jumps off.
Boosts ratings. It boosts ratings. It's good for you.
Yeah, she's our biggest fan. So
there you go.
So, how's everybody's week, Frank? It's we always talk about it. It's Friday. Make it till Friday. We got to have uncork a bottle of wine or.
Yeah. So the week was good. I think we're starting to see an increase in interest in the managed services space from clients or prospects that I think their current MSPs maybe haven't done a great job for them, or maybe they're getting a little tired of the work from anywhere strategy that's a little more duct taped together than cohesive. So we're starting to see more leads come in, which is something we predicted. We thought there'd be a little bit of a groundswell, after or we're still in the middle of the pandemic, but we're starting to see that come through, and we're also starting to see an increase in some pretty good prospects for to employ. We're seeing some people that are available, maybe that I don't know if they got let go of other companies, or maybe they left. I know like around the cities we had some people who didn't want to commute into New York anymore and whatnot. But we're starting to see some really pretty good talent available as well. So my week was kind of split between working on some prospects and chatting with some potential new candidates for hire.
Well, that's exciting to hear from the MSP world. And, Frank wears two hats, obviously, as the founder of Audit, but he's in the trenches selling IT services every day. And he sees what's going on there, especially being in the New York City area, New Jersey. What are you guys seeing, Brian and Sinan? I'm sorry. What are you guys seeing from your partners as far as, are things starting to loosen up? Are things still crazy? What's going on from a sales prospecting perspective for you?
I'll comment on the managed service provider marketplace, and then I think Sinan is probably seeing a whole swath of not only MSP, but other demand in the marketplace from across all of our constituents. First, I just want to say I'm very happy to hear Frank's week success, because as more folks like Frank are successful, so are people like me. So I'm very optimistic to hear that type of, and it was, I will say I compare that response to what we heard in late December and early January is a very different response. So there's far more optimism, I would say, as far as managed service providers, seeing opportunities within their small business client base, seeing some spending that's occurring. A lot of that spending is definitely being geared towards, I would say, either digital transformation or more digital orientation of their businesses. And then, pretty close behind that has been more security related interest. I think, as there's been a good amount of attacks and breaches in the marketplace that have impacted small businesses as well as managed service providers, that the security investment is starting to be a driver of spend. It's been a driver of conversation and what do we do and how do we do it in context of our new business model. So I too had a pretty good week, and relative to the way Frank was sharing, that we're just starting to see more small businesses I would say, evolve, grow a little bit more, and have more confidence that technology can be a catalyst for them.
Yep, I can share on a similar note. Actually, this has been going on for almost a year now since the first shelter-in-place order, right? We've been seeing a major uptick in anything around remote access, remote support, endpoint security, the security controls that are closer to the edge as people are working from home. They're bringing their own networks to the equation. In some cases, actually, because of the supply chain being overburdened, they have to bring their own devices into the equation, their own home networks. So there's been a tremendous uptick in business, but also as you can look at, public source data, right? Okta releases their top applications. Azure AD releases their top applications list month after month. Who's growing the fastest? You'll see that a lot of remote access, a lot of remote support, a lot of endpoint security solutions are being onboarded and gaining traction and more business. So since the first shelter-in-place order, we always bet that the world is going more distributed, the world is going more decentralized. A lot of applications are moving away from data centers and on-premises to the cloud service providers, but even more so to SaaS applications. So this was also already an established thesis, but of course, with COVID, with shelter-in-place and lockdown, everything accelerated. So yeah, it's been many, many good weeks in a row if you're in the remote access business.
That's great.
One thing that I saw, and you guys are obviously in a little bit more in the security space, right, is the last couple of years in the managed services space have been hyper focused on cybersecurity. It's like one vendor after a next, solutions entering that marketplace. And one thing that I saw is that people forgot a little bit about business continuity, right? It was kind of like yesterday's news, right? And cybersecurity was all the rage. And one thing that I found that the pandemic has exposed was I think there was a little bit more of a tilt towards cybersecurity. And we're seeing it tilt back a little bit more because, prospects are coming to us and saying security is almost a little bit of a secondary thing for us if we can't get to our, the server in the office, or we can't get to that stuff, right? So you're seeing some of that remote control type of solutions. That was okay for a month or two, but like you guys astutely pointed out, that's becoming the norm now, right? A hybrid workforce. You can't remotely control the computer in the office as a regular practice forever. So
yeah.
Before we would see some prospects come to us and say, hey, we had a breach or, nothing major, but that was usually the reason maybe to look at another MSP. Right now we're hearing a lot of, we just can't work. Our business continuity isn't there. So we're starting to see that become a little more important again, which then re-exposes all the challenges that you have now that work from anywhere. Now cybersecurity has to evolve, and those solutions become even more important for that work from anywhere. So we're starting to see a little bit more of a balancing act towards business continuity first, and then cybersecurity kind of layered on top of it.
I'll add one thing to it, Frank. It's not just business continuity, it's business survival. So I don't want to work with, we track when folks request to change managed service provider. So if, the local dentist office is needs to switch or has chosen to go with a different IT provider, we watch that. It's been trending, upward more substantially over the past year than it had in previous years. But I would say that selection process has been, I want to work with an IT provider that doesn't just get me back to where I was in February of 2020. It's somebody that's going to come in and recommend, I'm shifting to the M365 portfolio. I'm shifting to a bring your own, a secure bring your own device model, somebody that's going to put an online app on for me, something of that nature. So we're seeing a lot more of that happen.
Yep, 100%.
And can you, I just want to back up a little bit too, and fill in. Can you give me a little more detail on what you guys do at Barracuda? You talked a little bit about it, obviously cybersecurity, but can you get more specific on what services you provide through MSPs? Are you channel only?
Yeah. So the MSP division is only to managed service providers. So the group that I lead, we build products including a remote monitoring and management solution, a endpoint backup solution, and an antivirus we partner for, and then we bring that directly to managed service providers for them to serve their clients. There's a whole other part of our business, which is of Barracuda, which brings products through the channel to end users, and more of a reseller or marketplace consumption model. And both of those go-to-markets get to utilize products that are either built inside the MSP group or outside. And Sinan leads a group that is probably building one of the most fascinating and most quickly, the highest interest offering in the Zero Trust Network Access solution, because at least from an MSP standpoint, we have the managed device covered. So we can load an agent on it, and you can do a remote monitoring and management solution for it. But as Frank highlighted, not everybody's using their office computer anymore. They're using their mobile device. They're using their, I'm going to call it family issue device, because I do that in my family.
Yeah.
Whose computers are getting used today? Are they school devices? Are they our own devices? It's the family issue device, which aren't necessarily the most secure. So in our business, we primarily sell to managed service providers, and we get to sell a host of information security and data protection solutions. And probably the one that we're getting the most intrigue on to sell and support and to make successful has been the Zero Trust solution that Sinan is building and developed before he joined the Barracuda family.
Hey, from the origin, standpoint of Barracuda, I remember it was all about spam filtering appliance, right? That was kind of where it all started, right? Years and years ago.
Yeah, it started there, and now email security is still one of the top parts of our portfolio, both available to end users and available to the managed service providers. It's cloud-based. So, we still have an appliance option for those that prefer it. I would say that's not the norm. Most folks are going, cloud-based email, cloud-based security. It is also a pretty hot topic right now as the pickup of Office 365 or MC 365. I get the packaging wrong most of the time, especially as that adoption has been a massive catalyst recently. So we, on the MSP side, Zero Trust, email security, and remote monitoring and management have been, over the last 12 months, probably the most invigorating part of the portfolio because of the situation that the market's in.
Yeah, and the company overall has 25 products, that maps into basically every security control you can imagine in a cybersecurity framework. Like take NIST, for example, right? We can help you identify your assets and your configs. We can help you protect them, put the security controls in place, detect and respond to security incidents, but also through the backup, through the business continuity angle, we can also help you recover, right? So there's a product portfolio that basically maps into an entire security program, all the way from identity to recover, where you can have full fidelity to any kind of a compliance framework, any kind of a cybersecurity framework. So it is a well diversified portfolio, starting from email. There's the division that I'm under, which is DNA, stands for Data Network and Application Security. But if you put all of these products together, essentially you can map it out to the entire NIST framework of cybersecurity controls. We basically can cover you in all of these requirements. And I want to amplify something, Frank, that you said. It is not for the sake of solving the latest and the greatest cybersecurity challenge. It's now about business continuity. It's about business survival, like Brian said, but it's also about improving your day-to-day workflows, right? Just making your life better not just saving you from the latest iteration of an attacker's vector, right? How can we also play into the connectivity, and access and remote access? All of these things are now part of the cybersecurity portfolio, not just for the sake of risk mitigation, but enabling.
And I do agree, and I think you're in the right spot right now for the zero trust type of policy or software, because in the past you could be predictive as to where the holes were and kind of plug them. You would see them. Now there's so many holes that you basically have to say nothing's getting through except for what we allow now. We've kind of flipped it around, and I agree wholeheartedly with that. I think the risk is so high right now, especially with that distributed workforce. And I think when everybody was under one roof and we had the firewall and you could really control it better, I think we had maybe we had more confidence and maybe we were full of that. But certainly now, I think Brian, you said it too. I mean, we have people that are using home computers for work, and it's all about survival. It wasn't like a recommended course, but all of a sudden in April, people are like, I got to onboard this machine. I need to work, and they can't get to the office. So we now realize that model is that hybrid, we'll call it, is here to stay in some fashion. And with the perimeter now being just everywhere, you do need that zero trust mentality. So nothing's allowed except for what we allow, and now we as the MSP have greater control. It's a little bit of a I think a learning curve for our clients. Like, we've had to communicate that in several different ways. And at the end of the day, I said, I'd rather have you be mad because we prevented you from installing a game on the weekend than you be mad because you have ransomware and you feel like our security stack failed us. So I think we really are at that point, and it's wise of Barracuda, to get into that space, because I do think that's the hottest area right now for growth.
So as your non-technical person here in the room, I will tell you that I'd be really mad if I can't install a game on the weekends.
I want to put some words in Frank's mouth if he'll let me. As a service provider, he doesn't want to get the call on Monday that the computer's been breached and is now all over because the game console decided to download as part of its payload something that is going to disrupt the entire your entire office.
That's true. The other thing, and we've done this for a while, not just with zero trust, but is getting customers to sign a waiver of liability if they decide that they aren't going to agree with or allow us to do the recommended things. So, if we say, hey, we don't recommend that you install this thing, even though you've alerted to us that it blocked it, but you still want it, no problem. You just sign the waiver of liability form. We'll put that on file, and you can install, Candy Crush on your computer. But to your point, Brian, if the payload gets delivered, I want to be able to cover my butt, because the lawyers are going to come gunning, and I want to be able to say, hey, they signed off that they wanted it against our recommendation. So I think that we see a lot more MSPs using that tactic. And I can tell you, sometimes people make a different decision when I ask them to sign that. They go, you know what, never mind, I'll install it on Junior's computer instead of my work computer. Sometimes it works.
Right. It's a bit different, of course, on BYOD, right? It's their personal device. You shouldn't be able to put those controls in that are very binary. So how we approach it is that if you're using your personal mobile device or your own computer, tablet, whatever it is, whatever the form factor might be, since we federate access, we can tell you, look, you have these applications, they are not conforming. You cannot have Candy Crush on a machine that you're going to access its internal resource, right? Whether it's a finance database. If you delete it, we'll grant you access. If you don't delete it, we're not going to give you access, but it's still your personal asset. You keep it there. You're just not going to be able to use this device to access. So that zero trust changed the paradigm over the traditional, more MDM, asset manager type approach that you force the config on it. No, we tell you this is what you need to do. This is the config that you need to apply. If you don't want, because it's your device, hey, that's fine, but you're not going to get access.
Yeah, and that way you're able to police the compliance side of things.
Right.
Smart.
Well,
Love it.
Yeah, that's what Sinan just highlighted was the biggest question starting in March and April of last year, and it's starting to get, people are starting to actually answer it with investments because they go through the same paradigm. Am I going to allow this to happen? if I allow it to happen, does it hurt me somewhere else? Are there consequences, right? I have this conversation. Are there consequences? And are the consequences, I put something on, but I can't get access to my corporate resources on my home device? Or should I hold off, make sure this device does have access to corporate resources because of the personal or professional situation that we're in?
Mhm.
And that is it's the same trade-off of signing the liability waiver, right? It's I'm going to pay you to be my security person, but because I do stupid things, I'm not letting you do your job. So, and I'm sure, Frank, like most intelligent MSPs, you have a premium to deliver a high value security service. And if somebody says, I'm going to pay that, but I won't hold you liable for it, that's probably the best of both worlds for you, is you get paid and you don't have the liability.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And truth be told, I would love for them to just listen, right? And not have that waiver, because they're still going to call me even when the problem happens. And even though I have the piece of paper, I'll say, well, you told us to do it. But so I have a question for you guys, as the MSP, I love selling. If I could do nothing, at my business but sell, I would be, thrilled. I love being able to deliver that value and bring those solutions to those small businesses. And Mike will tell you the reason why we call the podcast Elevating IT was because a lot of times when I would go to a prospect, I would look around, we would do an assessment, and I would just, let me see what you have, right? And my best prospects were somebody else's client, and I'm not targeting other MSPs, but, suffice to say, if somebody else has already convinced the business to pay monthly, that's half the battle, right? Now, if I can come along and show them a better way to do it or get more value for, bigger bang for the buck, it's great. But I've always been disappointed sometimes. I look around and say, man, these guys have an MSP, but the place is a mess. This house is not in order. Like, what's the issue? And it's not for a lack of product. You guys know, whether it's Barracuda or somebody else, there's a lot of great vendors in the space. There's a lot of great product. So why did the SMBs not have it, right? And what I figured out is I think a lot of SMBs are just not great at selling. They have the solution. They believe in it. We're, like myself, I have an engineering background. So, I understand this stuff from the under the covers perspective. But a lot of MSPs, when you try to sell to, the partner at a law firm, he has no idea what we're talking about. So my question to you guys is how do you guys solve for that? I mean, do you teach your MSP partners, how to sell the solution instead of just the battle card type stuff? What are you doing? Because I always love the vendors that do that, because I think those vendors are at the forefront of the MSP market space.
Yeah, I'll take the general stab at that, Frank, and then I'll let Sinan talk about on his offerings in particular. But the real thing that we've found and personally I've experienced in this marketplace has been making the technology having the technology include the assessment capabilities and educating partners to not just use them once to gain the client, is to use them on a recurring basis, because you can show, I'll take email as an example. It's something everybody knows. We have a threat scan that will go in and show you dormant threats, you as an MSP, and then you can also show your clients, these are all the things that came in this week, without any investment on anybody's part. We can run this report after we put something in place and you start paying for it, and we'll show you how much comes in after that. And I think, we have it on a remote monitoring and management solution. We have a security assessment. Most people, the score is there, the assessment score and all of the details is there every day. How frequently does it get shared? Once a week, once a month? Probably not. So the best sales enablement that we have seen has been educating our partners on how to utilize the assessments multiple times, not just in the sales, not just in the acquiring, it's in the ongoing and the price justification and value justification conversation. And the second thing has been getting the technology into the hands of the partners as quickly as possible, whether it's a trial or for internal use. A lot of people say, oh, we have internal use of the whole thing. we'll onboard partners with their internal use the same way we would help a partner onboard an end user client. And I think that's the easiest sales. That's probably the second, besides the assessment, that's probably the second best sales motion that we've seen work, is don't just, and I'll give you an example of that. So we do anti-phishing as part of our email security. We recommend that our partners sell, anti-phishing solutions to keep employees educated on security awareness. We put our MSP partners through the same security awareness training so they can see if their own employees will fail the phishing scams. And if you can't use it and see how it's going to be used, I don't expect you to be able to position the value and sell it. 10 to 12% of our MSP employees will click on those phishing scams. And then they go and say, you have to buy this. And they never say, even we get fooled sometimes. We guarantee you, Mr. Doctor's office or dentist office or automotive, we guarantee that you're going to get it too. If we get it, we're the smart guys. So the first is just use more assessments. And I think, Sinan, what we've built in the Zero Trust solution, you have one of the better reporting engines and that can be used when somebody deploys a trial.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you share for reports? So some of the things that I don't know, but maybe some of the details when somebody installs a product that they could show a client.
Yeah, immediate proof of value, definitely helpful. Internal use, I think that has also been the most important product mover for us, for partners. You deploy it for your own consumption, but think about it, they also service their customers. So they use the product to actually have remote access to their customers' networks, right? Then think about that. It's something that they use for their own, IT workflows. They use it to service their customers. It becomes a lot more easier. They become a lot more fluid in explaining this product. Hey, I use it to do my IT work. I use it to access my customer's network, to service appliances and all kind of gadgets. Then it becomes a much more frictionless. They can articulate because they use it every day in and out, right? So the internal use, I will underline that over and over again. It's critical for an MSP partner to kind of be able to comprehend the value and then very easily articulate it to the customer.
It's the same question. It's the same question you do at a restaurant when you ask the waitress, waiter, when we all get to go back.
Yeah. What's your favorite, right?
What's your favorite and why?
Yeah.
How many times do you have it? I frankly, even if it's a new client, I got to believe somebody's going to say, do you use this in your own shop?
Yeah. I was just going to say, we eat our own dog food, and we always tell the prospects that say, the solutions that we sell and maintain are the ones that we use to run our business as well. And I also think that it establishes credibility, but more importantly, you become an expert when you're using it internally, as opposed to just looking at it. And I think alignment is important, because if you represent 5 different solutions and you use one, you're kind of spread all over the place. And I feel like you're not aligned on a standard technology. How can you be an expert in that when you offer 5, competing vendor solutions in the same space? So I think, you do need to evaluate. You need to pick one. I think you need to use it internally.
Yeah.
And then you could be even more passionate about selling it because you're a believer because you use it. I also want to touch base on something that you mentioned too, which is, and I love the assessment side. That's what we created with Audit, because what we found was the ability to show present state and future state was really important. So like you're doing it right with the security score, where you go in and before you do anything, you say, here's where you're at. Here's where, whether it's a numerical score or colored or you're showing all the threats. Then afterwards, when you use your solution, here's the improvement. And the differential between there, I believe, is the value of the sale, right? And that's what helps gets it sold. And I think the more simply you can make that output, the report, to understand to the end user, the more successful you are, right? The more stuff you put in there and confuse them, you make it a 300-page report, you don't look at it, right? So I think it has to be simple. And I think, before and after is so critically important to getting them as a client and then keeping them and continuing to show what that continuous value is.
It's the continuous value.
Yeah. And there's 2 sales, right? So the way I look at it is if we have a new client that comes on board and your solution is part of that stack, like it's going to be bundled in there. They're getting that solution, right? It's in there. So that's one type of sale, which is arguably for us easier because we don't give them the ability to decouple it, right? But what do we do with all our existing clients, right? So there's an upsell and cross-sell opportunity that we have to go back to those clients and we have to show them, hey, there's a deficiency here. And sometimes it's because there's a new product, like Zero Trust is a newer product to the MSP space, right? And there's other types of, so sometimes we come in there and with something new and we show it as a deficiency and they're like, whoa, what's this? And then we say, well, here's and we have to explain it in a way that they could understand and see value and then try to get them to say, yes, we want to pay for that, right? So there's those two sales, it's existing upsells versus bundled in for a new client sale. So I think, that report and the assessment has value in both of those areas.
Very cool. Guys, do you what would you do? What would you say to your clients who might be struggling to sell, or, what kind of words of wisdom would you give to folks on taking their game up?
It happens almost every day for us, is pick a place that you want to start and be successful and learn the product line, become the expert, use it yourself, utilize the assessments, use them across your client base, get familiar with it, and then add the next one. Those that try to start with, I'm going to bring my pile of security solutions that will prevent everything and you'll never have to buy anything else again, that you're not educated on, you haven't used internally yet, and you haven't done for most of your clients. And I think there's a bifurcation after that, which is how up to speed are you technically? You might have some folks that have been in this business a while, like Frank, that, know the ins and outs of anybody's firewall. It doesn't matter, or, they're comfortable having that technical conversation. We have a lot of partners that are transitioning into the security business, and they need to have their focus be a start on something that's, lower touch, is not as technical. The phishing campaigns has been, the anti-phishing, you don't need to have years of firewall training to actually run a phishing campaign to prove that people have a gap there and they need to make an investment. So I think the third one is pick something that has value today. If you've got to focus, figure out if it's going to be technical or non-technical. If you go down the technical path, make sure that you have something that solves a problem that's going to be one that is forward-looking. This is why Barracuda makes an investment in Zero Trust Network, is we believe that is, where remote monitoring and management and where SSL VPNs were 5-7 years ago. So I think it's 3 simple steps. Get focused, figure out if you're going to be starting on the technical side or not, and if technical, pick something that's going to have value today and future going forward.
Yeah, I cannot on the technical side. Bottoms up motion is always the right way to go, right? Focus on one use case and basically, articulate that and, put maybe meetups together, maybe, virtual conferences together. Like just to give you a concrete example, right? How to be successful putting MacBooks on a Windows network kind of a thing, right? Just a very technical use case. It's a challenge, how to make a business successful with introducing Macs or personal mobile devices, right? Start from that bottom up use case, try to evangelize that. And I think that has the most conversion. How to bring, security connect devices that work from home, right? That's a use case. And you evangelize it, you pitch it basically to the folks that are working in and out every day, to the admins, to the IT operations teams, and then build the business case bottoms up. I think, at least for my product and my demographics, it works the best.
I think a lot of MSPs are run by people who are technical, and so I think that a lot of the sales confidence starts from the education, right? Having the confidence and knowing it well. So picking, like you said, one particular line of business or aspect, right? And then becoming an expert in there and then making sure that there's a need. I also think it's important to educate your prospects and customers all the time too. So we're always trying to stay ahead. I'd rather have them hear about that new stuff from me than from somebody else who's marketing to them or reading it on the news somewhere. So I think that education is important. They may not buy now, but they'll buy eventually. And you need to make sure you have that solution. The worst time to figure out, as an MSP, like whose vendor's product you're going to sell is when your client asks for it, right? You want to say, hey, wait there, I'll be back, I'll figure it out, and I'll so you might have to fake it until you make it, so to say. But I think, again, from the education standpoint, you've got to be out there as an MSP. You got to be listening to what the vendors are telling you and like what's important. You've got to, you got to be able to evaluate. I think if you're a new MSP, sometimes it's easier because, you can step into maybe a solution like yours that's multifaceted, right? Where you get a whole bunch of things at once that they need. Some MSPs have been around a while, might be invested in a phishing tool already, right? So they don't need the bundle, but they need more like the individual components of that, say, Swiss Army knife. So I think education is a huge component towards successful sales.
Awesome.
People always buy things from confident individuals. I've learned in my career, if you're confident and you have a subject matter expert, whether it's a use case or deep technical knowledge, you don't. I've been used the dentist as the example of a small to mid-sized business, but none of us want to go to a dentist when they walk in and say, where's the light and which one is the drill? Nobody wants to stay in that chair. Yeah. The same thing in the technology world. Nobody wants to walk in and they go, so where's your computers? That's not how, and we still have those examples today of MSPs that don't have the subject matter expertise or committed to the education that they need to better sell their clients.
What I found has worked really well is, let's say, like we take the concept of zero trust, software policy, whatever, and I need to introduce that to my client. So I show up with a current assessment of their environment, and there's a red box under the cybersecurity category, and it says zero trust policy. And my clients have, after having now gotten used to getting regular assessments, like say quarterly from us, they normally see a lot of green. Green is good. You see a red box. You know what they say? What's the red box, right? And they're leaning forward. Now think about the dynamic here. Normally you go in, hey, Joe, how are you? And you start pulling out, you get out the, hey, I got this thing. It's called zero, and like you pull out like product slicks and it's technical and it means a lot to me. And I'm super excited about it because, I've learned all about the product and I'm now using it. But to try to get your accountant, client or, law firm client excited about that, we get excited about much different things. But a red box, Mike will tell you, they go, what is this? And they're leaning forward, not backwards when I'm talking at them. And I go, oh, I'm glad you asked me about that. And then the burden is on me to succinctly and easily explain it. Yep. And you know what they always ask next? How much is it? Right? And
why don't we have it?
And these are my upsell cross-sell opportunities. I always have a proposal, but for me, not for them. So I pull out the sheet and I go, well, we could turn that box green and remediate this issue. It's going to be another $200 a month, whatever it is, right? And then I stop talking. And what they're doing is they're calculating in their head. Now, if I've done my job properly, like the audit score is going to be close to 100, right? They're my existing client. We're doing a pretty good job. Now they've gone down to a 96. Do you know how that bothers them, that their score, it's like when your credit score goes down a couple points, mm-hmm. Like, it doesn't kill you, but it annoys you, right? You're like, well, what happened, right? And you got to look. So when you're that close to that finish line and they go, you mean for $200 more a month, I can have the zero trust, whatever. I go, yeah. They're more apt to say, okay, let's do it. And I upsell them. And if they say, nah, I don't want to spend the money, that's fine. It's still on that report. And 3 or 4 months later, when we meet again, a red box, and it drives them crazy. So like Mike knows, I kid around. I say, I sell green boxes, right? And the confidence comes into play that they know me, they trust me, they like me. So they know that I'm the one who's passionate about this thing that I've been telling them about. So I don't have to get caught in the technical weeds to convince them to do it. Eventually, they all say, yeah, let's do it, because they want the green and they want to get close, they want to increase the score. So that's kind of the game that we play. And it simplifies the sales process because I don't have to get real technical with them. So that's something that we try to do. And the reason why we have to do it that way is because not every vendor is as good as you guys are at educating the MSP and subsequently the client. Like some vendors are like, here you go, go sell it. And if you're channel only, the MSP is in the middle of the supply chain, right? So the ultimate consumer is the small business owner. So they end up not getting your product that they so desperately need. Why? Because the MSP in the middle didn't know how to sell it. And to me, that's the most egregious thing of all. Like, you guys have great products, but you don't sell it to the end user, and you're relying on an MSP partner to sell it, and they can't sell properly. And so everybody loses in that scenario, right? You guys aren't pushing and moving product, and the end user is not getting the benefit for it. So I think it's super important to keep that supply chain moving.
Agreed.
Awesome. Cool. Well, guys, I'm going to give you, Brian and Sinan, I'll give you guys the last word to kind of tell everybody how they can get in touch with y'all.
I'll start. So Barracuda.com has all the information you need to get started. And if you're looking for more thought leadership, smartermsp.com. And that has, tales from the light side and the dark side of other MSPs and their experiences with us. So we want to make sure that folks can understand more about Barracuda, and they can understand more about how we, of their peers in the MSP marketplace.
Yeah, I'll say more on the product side of things, Barracuda.com. We do have product demos available, trials available. You can actually even play with the products without signing up anything. There's all these demo portals. You can see them in action with some default values and things configured, but also a very, very easy trial, click through, kind of get something going immediately and get, observe the value that the product will add. So yeah, that will be the place to go, Barracuda.com.
Great. Well, thanks for being on, guys. I appreciate it. We'll definitely love to talk to you guys again. Frank, thank you for all this great insights today. Really appreciate it. And we will see everybody next week. Until then, keep on elevating IT.
Thanks for having us.
Hey, guys.
Thanks.